welcome. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. We're going to get our program started here in just a minute, so if I can ask everybody to grab some snacks, water, drinks, and then just move on down. We have the street blocked off, so I promise you will not get hit by a car. And let's just gather close so we can all be together and enjoy our program this afternoon. Feel free to grab a seat. They're not reserved, so first come, first serve.
Please, don't be reserved. Not reserved. There you go. Get in there, folks. I'm going to take my cue from the mayor. The representative said should be said. I don't know. Yeah, we do need to get started.
All right. Hello, hello. Good evening, Newburyport and visitors. On behalf of Newburyport's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance, welcome to the City of Newburyport's third annual Juneteenth flag raising. Once again, we join together as a community to commemorate the emancipation of enslaved African Americans and the historic day on June 19th, 1865, when the Order for Freedom reached the state of Texas. I'd like to thank Will Nelson of Will in the Way. Where'd he go? Where is he? There he is. Thanks, Will. I'd like to thank the Paddle Inn for the food donation. So please, everybody, if you would like a snack, there's food in the back. And I'd like to acknowledge some distinguished guests in the audience. We have Senator Bruce Tarr. Thank you for joining us. Superintendent Sean Gallagher. Thank you. Sarah Hall, School Committee. Thank you, Sarah. Counselor Heather Shand and Counselor Connie Preston. And State Rep Dawn Shand, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your support. We are honored to welcome our distinguished speakers for today's program. Mayor Sean Reardon. Woo! Youth poets Tuala Sullivan and Aibhne Martino. Dean Edward Carson, thank you for joining us again. Yay! Reverend Helen Murgida and Nicole Mcclain, President of the North Shore Juneteenth Association, who will now deliver the keynote address, Miss Mcclain. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out. This is a good number of people, so give yourselves a hand clap. Thank you for attending, and I'm happy to hear that this is your third flag raising, so that is also cause for applause as well. Thank you for inviting me here today to speak on the Juneteenth holiday. Obviously, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. The North Shore Juneteenth Association has been around since 2017, raising the Juneteenth flag in various cities and towns on the North Shore of Massachusetts. So when I hear the word free slaves, I hear an oxymoron. Black people were enslaved and put through one of the worst atrocities in human history. Atrocities that have been documented from the start of the Atlantic slave trade to the present day. There is a timeline of unrelenting struggle. 400 years of slavery, 101 years of segregation, and unceasing years of oppression and so-called freedom. We are here today to celebrate not only freedom of Black Americans, but Black Americans themselves. Juneteenth is a time to look at the complex experiences that we have lived through as a people. The realization that we have lived and continue to thrive. It is imperative for us and the world to acknowledge who we are as Black Americans. Denied education, denied housing, denied life, liberty, in the pursuit of happiness. Yet, here we are. Still becoming. becoming scientists, engineers, politicians, graduating from various educational institutions. Here we are, navigating systemic oppression the best way we can. One of the goals of the North Shore Juneteenth Association is to educate the community about why Juneteenth is important and why this holiday should be celebrated. Juneteenth has been celebrated annually on June 19th in various parts of the United States since 1866. The day was recognized as a federal holiday on June 17th, 2021. President Joseph Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law. This holiday commemorates the 2-year delay enslaved Black men, women, and children in Galveston, Texas experienced before being notified of their freedom. General Gordon Granger, along with Union Army troops of color, rode into Galveston, Texas and announced General Order Number 3, which states, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere." That general order is problematic. It is asking the enslaved Black Americans to remain quietly in a place where they have been abused and have experienced unimaginable pain. It is asking Black Americans to be quiet in their freedom, not loud. Don't cause any ruckus. Don't be cheerful. Don't celebrate. Don't be happy. Remain quietly and work for wages. Now, who's to say they will get wages? Because it doesn't say what the consequences are of not paying them. So, as I said, this is a problematic order. But with all that being said, imagine hearing of your freedom and being able to own that. Knowing that as a person, you have been set free from early mornings and late nights of hard labor, or that your body is all of a sudden yours, that no one can force themselves on you. That news is cause for celebration. The general order contained the message of freedom, but it also contained the message of entrapment. Would Black Americans be supported in their lawful right to be free? And that general order said they would not be supported. As Americans, we pay into this corporation or institution, if you will, because it's lawful to do so. Although the blood, sweat, and tears of my ancestors are proof of a debt unpaid. Even though I don't feel free yet, I feel our strength, our resilience, and our intelligence and beauty. Just as the world does, almost 8 billion people on the planet, and the people that are classified as Black American are a mere speck of that, with 40 to 50 million people. And look how much influence we have all over the world. Our way of dressing, our way of speaking, our way of singing, dancing, the list goes on. That shows improves our power, our strength, our resilience, our intelligence, and our beauty. Let us celebrate how far we have come, but never lose sight of how far we have to go. And it starts with unity. It starts with gatherings such as this. These are the beginnings of things becoming better for all cultures, for all people of this world, not just for Black Americans. North Shore Juneteenth Association wishes you a happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. Please celebrate, please be merry, but please be aware that there is still a long way to go. Thank you.
Okay, please welcome our Mayor, Sean Reardon, to speak and deliver the city's proclamation.
Thank you, Melissa. Before we get started, I just want to recognize at-large Councilor Extraordinaire Ed Cameron is also here. All right. First, I want to thank Nicole for being our keynote speaker today and for her moving us with her words. And thank you to all of our speakers and other participants. I am very excited that we have youth speakers coming after me today, so I promise I won't take too long up here. And of course, I want to thank the DEI Alliance and our wonderful DEI coordinator, Tina Los, for all their work in organizing us here today. This is truly an amazing event that hopefully will keep growing year after year. It is so meaningful to be here celebrating today with good food, beautiful music, and this amazing community. Juneteenth is still new to many in our community, and we are still developing city traditions for how to celebrate this important holiday. I spoke last year about how Juneteenth we start celebrating, and it's also an opportunity to learn and to act. I love this theme as it is teaching us that this is not just a passive holiday. We are part of it. This is a day to call to action. We will have many opportunities to celebrate throughout the weekend, with today just being the start. Please make sure to check out the events organized by our community partners, like the Bell Bell Roots Music Series, the WYNCA of Greater Newburyport, the Screening Room, and Joppa Radio. There'll be events throughout the North Shore as well that are worth traveling to, so to get your fill of celebrating this long weekend. I'm also particularly excited for all the music featured in our celebration today, especially Will, my man Will. Later on, we're going to have a performance of Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem, written by James Weldon Johnson and John Rosamond Johnson. It's possible for some people joining us today that this is one of your first time hearing this wonderful anthem, especially if you don't watch all the Super Bowl pregame festivities. If this is the case for you, this offers a great opportunity to learn and to listen closely to the lyrics. I recognize as a white man, my lived experience and reaction to this song are different from what Black Americans may experience. I do feel moved by the line, to sing a song full of faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. This speaks to the essence of the celebration that we enjoy here today. I encourage all of you, no matter your background or race, to look for meaning in this anthem and to look for meaning in the Juneteenth holiday and find out what it means to you. Juneteenth is not just a holiday for Black Americans or descendants of slavery. It is an American holiday, and we celebrate the end of slavery, learn about slavery's legacy and the evils it still is responsible for today, and act to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. We know we have so much more to accomplish together. I look forward to working with our DEI Alliance in the coming year to strengthen our community building and bringing new diversity, inclusion, and equity initiatives to City Hall. We want to all feel truly welcome in this community, and that needs to start with how people feel treated and respected by their government. We will look to improve the diversity and inclusion of our city workforce and volunteers, and we will work with our community partners to make sure institutions across the city are more welcoming to all visitors. And we will actively look for ways to address systemic racism across the city, the state, and our country. Thank you for joining us to celebrate, learn, and act today. I hope you will enjoy this celebration, and I look forward to seeing these celebrations continue to grow in the years to come. Thank you. Now I'm going to read the Juneteenth Proclamation. So there's a few whereases in here, so just bear with me. Whereas on June 19, 1865, over 2 years after the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation, the enslaved people of Galveston, Texas, received the word that they were now free. And whereas Juneteenth was first celebrated in Texas in 1866 and has been observed in communities across the nation since, to mark the emancipation of enslaved peoples. And whereas the city of Newburyport honors its history as home to leaders in the abolitionist movement, but also remembers its complicity in slavery and commerce tied to the slave trade, and is now committed to furthering the values of justice and equity. And whereas the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act was signed into law in June 2021, making it a federal holiday. Whereas the Newburyport Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance has worked with the greater community to mark Juneteenth as a day to celebrate, learn, and to act. Whereas on this day, as in cities and towns across the nation, people of all races, nationalities, and religions join in the community to acknowledge the pain caused by slavery in the past and its legacy that remains with us today, including the systemic impact of racial injustice in the United States. Juneteenth is a day to reflect on how to recommit ourselves to our shared goals of creating a more just and equitable society. Now therefore I, Sean Reardon, Mayor of the great city of Newburyport, do hereby proclaim Monday, June 19th, 2023, Juneteenth Independence Day. I urge all residents to celebrate the holiday, learn more about its history and significance, and take action by finding ways to further justice and equity in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Next, we have two amazing youth poets from Newburyport High School's Writing Out Racism unit of the creative writing class. Tuala Sullivan and fellow DEI Alliance member Aibhne Martino.
Hello, my name is Aibhne Martino, and I will be reading the poem Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts on a nightmare scream, his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
So I wrote this poem for Juneteenth last year, and I feel like it's especially relevant now because of what's happening in America. Juneteenth is about freedom and justice, and I feel like it's impossible to fight for the freedom and justice of Black Americans without also considering the freedom and justice of all Americans. The legislation that's been happening against queer people should be a reminder that it is our responsibility to love each other and accept each other, to fight for each other and to protect each other. A great tree grows here. We call her liberation. She was planted in this nation many years ago, a single Black seed in a place far from home, our history. Every freedom ride, every protest song has made roots here strong. No storm can shake her, no wind can knock her down. When nurtured with empathy, watered with reparations, reconciliation buds, it bears fruit enough to feed us all. Now there is nourishment for everyone blooming on this tree, one branch for returned land, one for livable wages. A lantern hangs to guide ripped apart families home. This branch grows freedom from birth. These cradle a treehouse sheltering young people with nowhere to go. Their love has been outlawed. They all make their home here. We weren't there when this great tree was first planted in barren soil. We've seen how she has been weathered by hatred, struck by bolts of prejudice, how they have tried to chop her down time and time again. They have not won yet. Still, liberation grows. We all must take care of her now. We all must take care of each other. Thank you.
That was beautiful, thank you. And once again, we are honored to welcome the Dean of Multicultural Education at Governor's Academy, Edward Carson, to deliver the call to action.
One more time for those beautiful folks in our poem. One more time, right there. Super awesome. Oh, they would slate me to follow that, and I just think that is not a fair fight, but yet I'm here because I'm gonna have a fight and I'm gonna pick one. I'm really good at doing that. I love the crowd and I appreciate folks showing up like this, particularly for the fact that you could be getting off work, living in a level of comfort, being complicit in your own privilege and comfortability, feeling a sense that I don't want to be unfringed nor unnerved by the fact that acts and legislative processes are underway that undermine the work and the identity of queer folks, women, BIPOC folks, and all the elements of indigenous and all other folks who believe they don't have any kind of voice that's here as well. I think it's one of those things that we have to keep in mind. So we're gonna have a good time today and we're gonna celebrate the work we're doing, but yet oftentimes what happened, and again, I'm not being accusatorial, folks, I'm gonna raise my hand, I'm gonna point a finger at myself because I do this too. It was a good day. I had fun. I showed up, I participated. Showing up is part of what has to happen. But yet, my next element is I'm going to go back in ways in which I'm going to forget about the challenges and the systemic oppression that continues to shape the narrative that really identifies and defines the reality of American history. That's what we're faced. So I'm going to ask you to do one thing real fast, and then I'm going to give you a little message, but I promise it won't be a sermon. Did you see that already? I forgot to take my watch off. Told folks, oh, I know I have about 5 minutes. And that's a challenge. I want you to turn to someone and I want you to tell them you love them, and I want you to tell them that you're not here just to really be engaged and listening to some type of celebration, but you're going to walk away from this and you're going to focus on the internalized personal things that you need to do in terms of challenging systems that exist. Those things, of course, means thinking about your own self, your own education. Thinking about the fact that, do you show up? Do you get comfortable? Do you become unnerved or nervous by the chants and the loudness and the noise that makes you feel uncomfortable? If those things are true, then you have to work just a little bit more. Do you feel this sense and this passion sometimes that that's not my problem? That's someone else's problem. I got to deal with my own stuff today. If that's the case, then you still have a little bit more work to do on yourself. I have work to do on myself. So let's just take a second, turn to someone, tell them you love them, and tell them you're going to show up and do the work you need to do for yourself. Take a second and do that. Here we go. Talk to your neighbor. All right, my friends. I think the first reality that we have to think about when I think about this call to action here, I'm not calling you out. I'm trying to invite you in, but if I have to call you out, I have no problem doing it. It's one of the reasons why I get in trouble and I stay in trouble. Last time I checked, I still have a job, but call me tomorrow and we'll figure out if that's still true or not. I am not worried about my job. Just don't talk to my wife and my mama about that, right? That's a whole nother conversation. I'm not worried about those things. Do I worry about getting arrested for showing up and getting in trouble? I ain't never worry about that stuff. I always show up. I always show up. And I need you to always show up. And you know what, folks, my friends, the thing that breaks my heart and breaks my soul is the fact that I'm committed always to showing up for injustice and problems that exist. And sometimes I feel like on half a hand, I'm not convinced nor am I sure who's going to show up for me. But that's not going to keep me from showing up whatsoever. That means you have to think about the things that you have to take care of, not just the celebratorial aspects that are important. You need to decolonize your mind. Accept the fact that white supremacy is real and that institutional racism is practiced by people throughout this country, within this community, within this state. You've got to understand that. You've got to interrogate. You have to interrogate the dominant narrative that this is the greatest country ever put on the planet by God herself. And if that's the case, right? You interrogate that to the fact that this country right here is a country that has been propagated in ways by people who look like me, who were left out of the Constitution because, as you know, if you're queer, if you're black, brown, indigenous, Asian, if you're a woman, you had to beg the legislative processes and courts just to give you a voice in which you can be seen and heard. If you're not a part of that narrative, then I'm hoping you're a part of that allyship, that co-conspirator who's willing to do the work that needs to happen. You need to respect the lived experiences of people of color, operating within the margins of white supremacy and constant fear as we walk down the streets, worried about the next legislative act that may happen that may remove our rights and our souls in different ways, wondering if we're going to have a job tomorrow, wondering if someone is going to harass us, wondering if I walk by, and I'm just going to say it because I'm a black man in America, which means I'm very political, folks, the fact that George Floyd was murdered in 2020, and by the time we get to, 2023, only 51% of Americans believe that Black Lives Matter is a real thing and we should support that. 51%. 51%. And that's down since 2020, when it was roughly around 75%. Those are the things we have to think about. You need to think about your institutional commitment to this community here. Where you work, is your workplace doing enough? Are they creating systems that make such an operation inviting for folks like me? Is your workplace a place in which you're actively recruiting, hiring, retaining women, queer folks, black and brown folks? Those are the things you need to think about. That's the conversation you need to have with your boss. And if you are a boss, and you're not doing those things, then that's another conversation you need to have there. The last thing I'm going to go ahead and say is this. I've been having conversations with folks, particularly lately over at the PEG Center, organizing, thinking about how do we make Newburyport an anti-racist community, a place when people want to operate within the confines of white supremacy, we make them shake with fear for the fact that we don't tolerate that kind of stuff here whatsoever. Those are the things that we will disavow and we won't allow here. We want to challenge City Hall to continue the support for the DEI Alliance. We want to challenge City Hall to say that we want Newburyport to be so anti-racist that not only are all members are committing and signing pledges to anti-racism, not only are the banks and the shops and the institutions doing the things that change the structural realities of predominantly white communities that are here and that exist. We want City Hall to say, we're going to put up a sign and say we don't perform in Newburyport. We are an anti-racist community and we believe that black lives, queer lives, and the lives of women matter. Those are the things we want to see happening. Because I'm going to tell you, I do this stuff a lot, and I hear folks talk a lot, and they engage in celebratory actions about all the great things in the commitment, until it's time to show up and actually do it. Then we get nervous about, well, let me tell you, Eddie, let me give you 15 million reasons why we can't make that happen. That's just another excuse, much like the delayed reality that we saw happening to the enslaved folks back in 1965 on June the 19th. That is just a matter of fact. If you think white supremacy doesn't exist in your neighborhood and in your community, here's a reality check. It exists, it's real, it's prominent, it's something that we face every single day. If you're interested in working with me in this call to action, I'm working with some folks to push City Hall, to push the businesses and the operations, to push the folks you vote for in this community, to say that we are an anti-racist community. We won't tolerate anything else. If you want to work with me, just Google me. It's not hard to find me. And if you come to the Governor's Academy, I assure you, I'm the only one who looks like me that's over there. So it's not going to be hard to find me. That is not going to be a problem. But if you really want to do that work, start with yourself. Reach out to me. I'm going to be organizing conversations in different spaces around here about how do we push Newburyport to that next level of thinking about that stuff. No more cheap talk, folks. That's easy. Let's celebrate, have a good time. Then next week, let's start working on the things that need to happen. Thank you for showing up, folks.
Thank you, Eddie. Next, Reverend Helen Murguida, Affiliate Minister at the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist Congregation, will offer an interfaith prayer.
Hey, Ed, we've showed up. You're here. Thank you. I'm Reverend Helen Murguida, an interfaith minister who serves as affiliate minister up the street at the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist. I'm honored to be with you as we gather in the spirit of this celebration and reconciliation on Juneteenth, Independence Day, which was finally declared our 12th federal holiday in 2021. Here today in Newburyport, we gather to seek the end of racism, racial inequities, human trafficking in the world. We acknowledge and we confront our own prejudices and fears and seek to serve as catalysts of change, reconciliation, and healing. We have the power to change another person's life with a little help. We are all capable of changing the world for the better, one small step at a time. Little things like a single act of kindness can have the ripple effect that teaches many others, both directly and indirectly. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. When he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, he said, "Nonviolence is not sterile passivity, but a powerful moral force which makes for social transformation." Some of the heroes in this journey that we have been on for so many years reminded me of Medgar Evers. He was an important contributor to the American Civil Rights Movement. He was hired by the NAACP in 1954 as the first field secretary in Mississippi, a seemingly small foundational step that enabled him to spearhead the civil rights justice movement in Mississippi, especially around voting rights. He led investigations into 9 racial murders, the lynching of Emmett Till, and the wrongful conviction of Clyde Kennard. 60 years ago this month, he was assassinated by a white supremacist and member of the Ku Klux Klan. His wife, Merle Evers Williams, now in her 90s, a remarkable woman, continues her fight for justice in the decades after her husband's assassination. She herself, from 1995 to 1988, served as the first chairwoman of the NAACP, and that position did not come easily to her. She also spoke at President Obama's second inauguration. Medgar's brother Charles became the first Black mayor of Fayette, Mississippi, the first since Reconstruction. And their daughter, Rena Evers Everett, was 3 years old when her father was assassinated on the front steps of their home. Reminds us that Juneteenth is about opening our eyes and our minds, gathering the courage to truly understand what our shared truths are. And I add to this, as Ed reminded us, to act upon them. Our prayer today is by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., written from the Birmingham jail, Alabama, on April 16, 1963. It's entitled, "A Network of Mutuality." We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice everywhere and anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Amen, and may it be so. Dear people who gathered here today in fellowship, go in peace and with great joy. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. We will now raise the Juneteenth flag to the song "Lift Every Voice and Sing," the Black National Anthem, performed by Tanya Crowell. The flag raising will be Helena Almonte. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Helena Almonte, and today, hello. I'm going to be reading a spoken word poem for you all today. Juneteenth is a commemoration of the day that African Americans were first notified of their freedom. Yes, you hear me correctly. I say notified because that freedom was supposed to be granted 2 years prior. Today, we are celebrating the freedom of a people so large and so full of life that we cannot be contained, will not be shrunk down for comfortability, will not be watered down for your consumption, and will not be erased from history, ever. Let us remind ourselves that no human being should ever have to ask for their freedom. And my hope is to see the day that that vision becomes true. While we have been given our freedom on American soil, that freedom still remains conditional. Celebrations are in order, but there is still work to be done. With that being said, since this is a celebration, I would like to gift my brothers and sisters a reimagining of the Black diaspora. I have a vision for a world that is just and free. One where there are people dancing and shouting with pleasure. I imagine there will be a place where our people will gather freely without fear of retribution or being analyzed for anthropology. I envision a world where there is no anthropology, where the nature of that study is uncivilized and unnecessary, for the world is already ours. This is a place that is lined to the brim with greenery and trees, a forest that has not been touched by the fatal hand of colonialism. This forest is rich and dense like the texture of our hair, tangled branches twisting towards one another, growing into each other, creating a bond that travels root deep. The networks beneath our feet functioning as vias of communication, pulsating with raw energy taken directly from the source. We walk barefoot in the dirt, our digits dexterous, the way that nature intended. We are one with the planet now, one with one another. Genetic memory wiped clean from our database. Here, we only know the sweet scents coming from bouts of honeysuckle and dandelions lining our path. We know misty dewdrops on leaf petals gathered in the early hours of dawn. We are familiar with peace and with freedom. We will have lived it for 400 years prior. We will experience it inherently, never to ask for our freedom ever again. Freedom will grow on trees as a native fruit swells with juice, eager to be plucked and be bit into, be it the sweet juice running down our chins. Let its pulp stick between our teeth as we smile at one another. We will dance freely under moonlit skies filled with stars, our aspirations sitting amongst them. We are free now. Free in every sense of the word, free with no chance of being apprehended. Here, we all speak the same language, and our tongues will sit comfortably in our mouths. There will be no need for our lips to contort into odd shapes to speak a language that was forced and unforgiving. Our form of speech will be ours entirely. There will be no splicing of words to accommodate outsiders. Our artifacts will remain in the land of which they were created. They will adorn our homes, lining our walls, our decorations made by artisans, handcrafted by tradition. Everything we use will be taken from the earth, and when we finish, it will be returned to the soil. And here, the soil is forgiving, because it recognizes us as its children. Our ancestors will be with us too, living in harmony and partnership with the soil, ensuring that their descendants may live in enrichment and prosperity. And prosperous we will be, as we always have been.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not a weary feet come to the place for which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears that have watered. We have come treading the path of the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till we now stand at last, where the white gleam of our light star is cast.
So beautiful, right? Woo! Well, thank you for everyone for coming today. It's so great to see so many faces. A lot of you were here last year. There's new faces out there this year. It means a lot. So please grab one of these flyers. They're at the DEI table in the back. If you have any questions about the DEI, there's somebody there to answer them for you. These are a list of upcoming events that will be happening this weekend, so please go grab one. And looks like there's still snacks in the back, so thank you. Have a great weekend. Happy Juneteenth.